Good morning, everyone. EagleX from ATX EagleX Gaming here today, and I have our market watch for the week. And as always, if you guys have not already supported the channel, I would appreciate if you can like, comment, and subscribe. As I see likes, I see the channel growing. It shows that I have support. You guys enjoy this type of content, and it definitely encourages me to keep making more. With that being said, let's get started with today's market watch with the sealed product. And there's nothing really notable here I want to point out about boxes besides the fact that BT9 is starting to surpass 1.0 just from the sheer quantity of staples we have. You're so much more likely to pull the staples you need in BT9 compared to 1.0 since it's such a large set. But also in addition to that, we have the reprint set coming up sooner than later, and it has a lot of the key cards you really care about in 1.0 besides like the alt arts in particular. So if you like the 1.0 alt arts, you're better off at getting the singles. But that's nothing new when comparing sealed products to singles. But we're going to move on to our bulk corners, starting things out. If you guys haven't looked, Digimon from EX2 has approached the $1 market price. So if you have these in your bulk, I wouldn't be surprised if they go up even more in the long run. But these are a solid like $1 a piece without shipping being counted as well. So keep an eye out on your Digimons. Next bulk card I want to point out is Digimon X to pair with the Digimon. Digimon X is also approaching $1 for all you Gallantmon fans out there. It's not bad to pick up these if you don't have them yet, but I would definitely be mindful of it. In the long run, X antibody stuff is going to be super solid as it's a free evolution for the most part over the corresponding X lines. And if it's not zero, it's going to be super cheap. It gives you extra cycle, which is what's really good about X antis. It gives more consistency in those decks. But a card I also want to point out in this like penny stock area is Sister Mont Blanc. If you guys have paid attention to BT13 and the Royal Knight deck, Yggdrasil deck, this card is a great staple as you have ways to work with your trash. It is cheap, lets you draw, and it also gives decoy in the scenario where you actually have this and your Royal Knights out at the same time. So it's cheap right now for roughly a quarter each. I wouldn't mind picking up copies to have as like a small investment portfolio, or just getting copies if you don't have them yet. It's not worth buying the Jesmon starter decks, but picking these up is definitely great in the long run. And then kind of moving over to our next part from like starter decks, you had these memory boost promos from a while back. And the reason I kind of want to point these out is because some of them are super cheap. We're looking at yellow mem boost and purple mem boost in particular. I know we're going to be getting new alt arts reprinted in the reprint set as well. But for 50 cents for a yellow memory boost, I think that's actually really darn cheap, because you have to keep in mind, when you're looking at Shine Gray decks, you can do yellow base or red base, and you can honestly run both memory boosts and Shine Gray lists, because they are yellow and red. The thing that would lean like a 4-3 ratio if you end up doing that is the color of your egg, since you can mem boost off the egg alone, but everything else in the Shine Gray deck is yellow-red if I recall correctly. But another thing I kind of want to point out is if you look at the price of Japan mem boosts, we see green ones are hovering around 6, but we see those purple ones hovering around 4. We see those yellow ones hovering around 3. And we see the yellow, green, and red ones are sold out on Big Web over here. So that indicates that the prices are a bit low on this site. If they're in stock here, it means they're a bit overpriced. So green mem boost being roughly $6 is a bit pricey, but if you compare it to our $2 for the regular or $6 for the alt arts, you can tell which one's probably a bit cheaper. I would definitely say ours are a bit cheaper than what they should be. But I kind of mentioned Shine Gray here. Almost every card in this deck is yellow and red, and we're kind of looking ahead like, what do we want to pick up now to make sure we're ready for this deck, as you're continuously getting more support for this deck. And I want to emphasize the top ends, the level 6s. This is like a cookie cutter, like average type of build thing. It doesn't mean every list is going to look like this. Like you can scroll down, get an idea. Here, if you look on Digimon TCG guide, they have all the different variants broken down, and you can look at more lists. But just looking from a quick overglance, I kind of just point out Shine Gray Mons, because I feel like, well, as the boss monster, you want to make sure you have your copies. And we're looking at the regular SR from BT12, which is your main one. He's roughly $9 right now. You got your Shine Gray from BT2, which is like $3 to $4. He's like the side one. But the main one you really want to have is your BT12 one. So if you don't have your copies, it's definitely worth looking into getting sooner than later. The reason I say that is if we look at the regular art copies of Shine Gray here from BT12, I kind of have a few different things pulled up here, or not, yeah, BT12, because I want to emphasize some other things with it. So we have our BT13, BT2, EX4. Oh, did I not pull up BT12? I did not pull up BT12. Zoinks. BT12, easy thing to add here. Okay, let's try this again. We look at our BT12 SRs, and we see our Shine Grays are roughly $18 here in Japan. They're still in stock here, so it shows they're a bit overpriced, but compared to the $9-ish they are now, it looks like a steal, especially with like how much support they give the deck overall. If you want to look at like the BT2 Shine even, because I do have that pulled up, it's not hard to find here. It's like $2, so it's a bit overpriced here, but it's pretty fair overall because it's an older SR and it's not getting reprinted anywhere. So I'd be surprised to see it go up or down a lot more. I just think it's a decent spot. But I do want to move on to the next Shine Gray that you guys probably weren't as aware of, or you are aware of, but it's coming up in our EX4 set. So we talk about Ruin Mode. If I can click one time and unclick these boxes, look at EX4. We look at Alt Art Ruin Mode in Japan, roughly $70. Regular art being roughly $50. Similar note here, we see the regular art's roughly $55, and if we look at the Alt Art Ruin Mode, we see is roughly $70. You can average 68-ish for the alt, roughly 55-ish for the regular art. When you look at our price right now of $60, it's honestly a fair price, but as pre-sales normally are, they're typically a bit inflated until the cards actually settle in price. So I wouldn't consider this a horrible pickup, but I would probably wait a bit, because once everyone starts listing, the price will dip for a bit until it starts going back up. The only exception is if they have a guaranteed pull rate. In a case kind of like EX3, you had a guaranteed ratios of alt arts and SRs in the set. So if you ordered a full case, you're guaranteed a certain amount. So to do it again with the EX4, I'd be very surprised, and it definitely could influence the price of this card in the long run for us here in the US. And moving on to our next thing, I want to talk about decks we can look forward to in EX4, and cards you may or may not have prepared already. Blue Flare is a deck that gets support in the form of a new tamer that counts as Korea or Christopher is Christopher Nene tamer, and for the purpose of Blazing Memory Boost, he is a valid target to play out. So it boosts the consistency of Blue Flare's search and Blazing Memory Boost targets. And if you haven't looked ahead of these lists, you'll see that the common SR that you may not have is the Metal Greymon from Blue Flare as 4 copies. And if you look even further, we see all our tamers, but then we have Metal Greymon at 4 copies. And you keep looking, and it's a common thing to see. It's a staple SR for this deck. If you don't have your staple for the deck, I would definitely look at picking up. The $6 definitely seems to be on the low end for this card. And on a similar note, because you want to only swing at tamers ideally, you want to emphasize your good draw egg. Wanyamon's a great egg. And honestly, it is your best generic blue egg now. It replaced Upamon as you're almost always playing a blue tamer in your blue decks now. And even before you would have, but it was just the most accessible draw egg. So I wouldn't be surprised if this foil Wanyamon went up for way more than $10, or if it gets an altar at any point in the near future. But it's definitely a solid egg for the long run. And then looking at one last deck in EX4, you can get a little bit excited for it, is Sakuyamon. The Kahuza, I can't ever remember how to pronounce it, but it's one that lets you play an option from your hand, and you can look at the most common targets at the moment being is the Megalospark from BT12, but you can also see some more of the wild combos you can do, since you're going to be spamming out a lot of bodies. Some people take it to the extreme with like Kaiser Nails. You got Megadeth as valid targets as well, because you have the blue, you add the green from the dual tamer, you have the color requirements. This is like the Kaiser Nail build though, or some type of Kaiser Nail build where you use purple yellow jogger stuff. You have Gatomon you can play. Okay, it's on play thanks to Kazuha. And then you just got more of your more linear Sakuya line. This has a little bit of Shaman package stuff in it, so it's a little bit more jank, but there is a lot of ways you can build the deck out. And the main thing I want to point out is if you're looking at building a Sakuya deck, make sure you pick up the Sakuyas you want. I think EX2 and the main mode are the more popular ones for the deck. We can see your main modes, we can see Kazuha. And if we look at this one, you can see your Kazuha, you got your Ruin modes. So it doesn't look like we even have old Sakuyas there. And then this is the weird purple-yellow variant, and there's definitely more lists out there if you keep looking for them. With that being said, guys, that's my market watch for today. I hope you enjoyed this content. If you do, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. With that being said, take care, y'all, and have a good one.